Oh, well, what are you going to do? You're ridiculous. There is no problem in life that my mother would not answer those two things to. No matter what happened to me and my sisters. I grew up in a family of 4 girls. Mom, I really studied hard for my test, but I didn't pass it. Oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to fail this class. Don't be ridiculous. Did you study? Oh, well, what are you going to do? You'll do better next time. Mom, I really like this guy at school, and he didn't ask me out. I'm never going to get a boyfriend. I'm going to be horribly alone. Don't be ridiculous. Everything will work out. Oh, well, what are you going to do? My mother was very traditional and conservative. And I always say my mom wasn't like the fun mom. The 4 of me and my sisters, we're the fun moms. We'll get down on the ground, we'll play with our kids, we'll let them make a mess. We never made jack-o'-lanterns because my mother thought, it's too messy. We can't do the jack-o'-lanterns. Why don't we have a real Christmas tree? It's just too messy. But I give my mother a little credit. She had 4 girls in 6 years. My father owned his own business, so he worked all the time. My father was the traditional, the decision maker, the driver of the family. He was the opposite. You failed your test? Well, what are you going to do? You better make sure you study. You're going to get into a good college. What college are you going to go to? What are you going to major in? And then when you major in that, well, what kind of jobs prospects are out there? How much money are you going to make? Oh, you have a job. What kind of the 401k do they have? You better make sure that you put a percentage away in your 401k. How much percentage do they match? This was my dad. And my mom was like, oh, good, you got a job? Okay, I hope you have fun. Do you know how to do that? Yeah, Mom, we have a college degree. We know how to do that. So my mother was very traditional and conservative. But my mother was always very warm and welcoming to people. Our house was the house that kind of our friends would hang out with. It was in the 80s. We usually would hang out and have a beer or two. You know, you could do that before you went driving to the bar when you were 17 years old. So my mother was somehow okay with that. And our house was the house that kind of we would adopt somebody every now and then. So a few times we'd have somebody who got into a fight with their parents and they lived with us. And I don't mean lived with us for like a weekend. I mean lived with us for months. We had one friend that lived with us for a year. And this is a true thing because I have a friend in the audience that may have gotten kicked out of her house when she was in high school and may have lived with us for 3 months. Is that true, Jeanette? Yes. Yes, so this is true, just to let you know, this is a true story. And my sister Debbie is in the audience and she will attest to the fact that we never carved jack-o'-lanterns and we never had a real tree because my mother thought it was too messy. My mother was very conservative. So part of this conservativeness is, with 4 girls, you would think at some point she would have a serious conversation with you about maybe having a boyfriend, getting your period, or maybe when you started dating, maybe she would have the sex talk with you. The sex talk was never part of the conversations. It's a rite of passage between mothers and daughters. My mother wanted nothing to do with this. One time I said to her when I was older, I said, you know what, Mom, like you never talked to us about that. She goes, don't be ridiculous. You had 2 older sisters. I know you talked to them. So this is where I got my wisdom from. But the one thing that I remember about my mother is she was very open to everybody. And she also was very responsible. And because she was conservative, one of the things that she was responsible for, and how do I share this with you? 4 girls in the family, 3 of them very flat-chested, never fully developed. Me, I was an early bloomer. I hated being an early bloomer. I hated it more than anything. But because I was an early bloomer, my mother felt the need that I needed a good bra, and I had to get measured for this bra. My sisters would go to Victoria's Secret and get the cute bras with the butterflies and the lace and the roses. I never went to Victoria's to get a bra. My mother, every year before school shopping, would take me to Connie's Lingerie in Port Jefferson, and I would get fitted for a bra. And it was a traumatizing event for me. As a 12-year-old in 1985, I would go, and these 2 older women, who I'm sure were lovely women, I hated their guts. I hated them with a passion because I would go in there, and my mother, again, would not go into the dressing room with me because she didn't want to have a part of it, and they would go and measure you. So at one point, one of the old ladies would come in, and again, very appropriate. There was no, inappropriateness this. But, you would take your shirt off and you'd be sitting in your bra and she'd whip out a tape measure and the tape measure would go underneath you and above you and she would yell out to the other lady, okay, she's a 36B. And they'd come in with all the 36Bs and they would leave the dressing room and let you try them on, but you couldn't buy one until they came back to make sure it fitted you properly. So there was a lot of moving and touching stuff and making sure that everything was in the place that it was supposed to be before you could buy your bras. Every year I did this. And every year, the day before I went to Connie's Lingerie, I would pray so hard. Please, God, don't make me go up a cup size. I'm a B, I don't want to be a C. I'm a C, I don't want to be a D. Please, God, please, God. God never answered me. Every year, I got a new bra. And every year, my sisters did not. And every year, they bought the cute little bras that were basically training bras. And I would go, and the year before, when I was in 8th grade, you were self-conscious about everything. And again, early bloomer, everyone in junior high knew who the early bloomer girls were, just by the way. And these were the days when the boys could snap your bra strap and it wasn't considered sexual harassment. And so I went and I became a C cup, and I just was traumatized by this. So my younger sister, when I got home and lipstick wrote on the mirror, I see you. I have never forgiven her for this. I burst into tears, and my mom was like, stop teasing her. You're going to give her a complex, which they did, totally. And I can't even believe I'm sharing this story in front of everybody. So it's a little cathartic for me. It's like my therapy. I'm like sharing my trauma with everybody. And my mom looked at life as, oh, well, what are you going to do, no matter what happened? And I think back now, and my father unfortunately passed away, and I think back now and I go, I'm 56, and my mother was 56 when my father got ill, and she was 60 when he died, so she was a young widow, and she lived for 18 years as a widow. And I remember going up to her once and saying, Mom, like, aren't you angry after my father passed away? And because, again, my father was the driver. He kind of took care of everything. My mother was the traditional, conservative, stay-at-home mom, and then she eventually worked part-time for my dad's company. My dad worked all the time, had his own business. And I said, Mom, aren't you, like, mad? Like, you guys got gypped. My dad had just retired. They were going to go to Alaska. They wanted to go to Europe. They had never gone to Europe. It was my father's dream to go to Alaska. I said, aren't you mad? Like, you got gypped. And my mother looked at me and said, how could I be mad? I had 37 great years with your father. We had a lot of love. I had 4 girls, and he got to see 2 of them get married. He lived long enough to see grandchildren. Do you know how many people, my sister's crying right now, do you know how many people don't even get that? So this was my mother's point of view. And unfortunately, she got ill with ovarian and breast cancer, and it was our turn to take care of my mother. And the 4 of us did. We took care of her. We never left her alone. We took her to the doctors. We took her to chemo. She was in hospice. We had shifts. We slept in the hospice place. But one of the things that we had to do was, after she got a mastectomy, she did not want to get a breast reconstructive surgery. So it fell to me to take her to get fitted for a mastectomy bra. And getting fitted for bras has not changed much in the 30 years since I did it when I was 12. And she was not really comfortable with this. And again, in order to get fitted for a mastectomy bra, again, I'm sorry if anyone, she had one boob and one not boob. And there was a lot of prodding and making sure that the fake boob fit and it looked okay. And I was in there and she was very uncomfortable. And I was like, yeah, remember Connie's Lingerie, Mom? It's a little cathartic. My life has come full circle. And when she was ill, a few of the things that she had said was, you know what, I just want people to come talk to me. You know, I'm not able to get out, I'm in hospice. I don't want people to think that, I don't want people to come talk to me. I want them to visit me, and this is what I can do, and I want them to talk to me. And my friends who lived with us always used to say to me, I love your mom. I love talking to her. They would come while they were sitting there having a beer at 17 before we went to the bar. And they would say, I just sit at the kitchen table and love your mom. You love talking to your mom. And of course we were like, why would you like to talk to my mom? Like, seriously? But everybody came. Everybody came and talked to my mom before she passed away. So the, oh well, what are you going to do, became her strength. The, oh well, what are you going to do, was don't sweat the small stuff. Before don't sweat the small stuff was a saying. The don't be ridiculous was the don't fight against things that you know that you cannot change. And she approached my father's illness and she approached her illness the same way. And before she passed away, she was very open about the fact that she was going to be terminal. And again, conservative, traditional mom, grew up in a big Italian family. She wanted the big Italian funeral. And she sat 4 of us down and said, I really want you girls to know that I put some money away in an account, in a checking account, because after the funeral, I really like when people go back to the house and they have something at the house, and I know that might be too much for you girls, and I don't want it to be a problem for you, so you can have it catered if you want to. And I put the money away, and if you don't want to have it at your house, that's okay, you can have it at a restaurant. I'd be okay with that. But just make sure you invite everybody back. We're like, okay, Mom, we got it. And then she says, and she wanted the full traditional funeral. 2 full days, 2 full nights, the funeral the day after, and we had to negotiate with my mother. We're like, Mom, 3 days, it's too much. It's just too much on everybody. Nobody does that anymore. Just do 1 day. We can do 1 day. No. Okay, I will agree to have 1 day, but you have to have 2 nights, because if you don't have 2 nights and you only have 1 night, it's very inconvenient for people, because sometimes if they're working or they can't get out there or they have to drive, then they feel bad, and then maybe they won't be able to come. So my mother's worried that we have enough money for the catering and that she's going to inconvenience people because they will not come to her funeral. This is my mother. This is how she cared. So one day she comes out and she goes, this is the purple dress that I want you guys to bury me in. And she goes, I'm just going to leave it here so you don't forget what it is. And we're like, Mom, do you know how morbid that is, that we're going to walk in the house and look at your funeral dress hanging on the door? We're like, put it in the closet. We will remember what the purple dress is. And then she goes on to tell us, well, when I wear this purple dress, I have this beautiful flowered brooch, and I always wear it, and I really want you guys to wear the brooch, because when I'm in the casket, people will be able to see it. But make sure you take it off of me before everything's done, because I know people do this. I think it's an incredible waste to bury people with jewelry. What are you going to do when you're literally throwing your jewelry in the ground? You guys don't have to touch it and take it off, but make sure you talk to the funeral director and he takes the brooch off before this happens. Okay, Ma, we're good. Don't worry. We will do you good. We will do everything that you want to do. Fortunately, the day comes, the morning of her funeral, and we go in for the viewing. Now, don't think bad of me. I love my mother. And again, I said, my mom wasn't the fun mom, but we are the fun moms, and we're the fun sisters. And we probably use humor a little bit too much in some uncomfortable situations. So let me put that out there before I tell you about the situation. So you realize that I loved my mom loved us, we all loved her. So you go in, somber moment, one of the worst days of your life, and I'm going there, and I'm with my sister, and you kneel at the casket to have the viewing. And I have never felt connected to that whenever I've gone to a wake. I was with both my parents when they passed away, and that was my closure moment. So I never really felt the need to see someone again in the casket. I understand that gives people comfort and peace. I just was never one of those people. So I'm kneeling down and looking at my mom in the casket, and I'm trying to think of some beautiful prayer to say, some loving thing to say. And I look at her, and all I keep thinking is, that looks nothing like my mother. If she didn't have the purple dress and the flowered brooch, I actually would not even know that it was her. And it looked like my mother grew up in LA and had like 15 plastic surgeries. Now, my mother was very ill at the end. And I look at my sister and I go, she looks like she grew up in LA and she's like been in Hollywood. And my sister goes, yeah, it's not Mom, it's Hollywood Mom. So for the next 3.5 days, we refer to her as Hollywood Mom. And then my kids start calling her Hollywood Grandma. So we leave the funeral home, we're like, go say goodbye to Hollywood Grandma, we're gonna go home. And again, my conservative mother would be horrified of this. And we keep saying to ourselves, this is so disrespectful. I can't believe we're saying this. And as people are coming in, they're like, oh, your mom looks so beautiful. We're like, doesn't even look like my mom. I know, she's like Hollywood, she had too much plastic surgery. But my aunt came up to us, my mother's sister, and she came up to us and she said, oh, she looks so beautiful. She looks like she did when she was young. And that made me feel bad and not like such a horrible person for calling her Hollywood Mom. And the second thing I thought of, other than the fact that she had too much plastic surgery, was her boobs were misaligned. They were not in line. And I knew which one was real and which one was fake, and which one was the mastectomy and which one was a thing. And I look at my sister and I go, her boobs aren't even aligned. The funeral director cannot, this one's higher than this one, look. And I literally lean over and poke the boob that is the fake one. I go, this one's the fake one, I could totally tell. And I was like, this is really bad. And I was like, what would my mother say? And then I was like, you know what? Mom would just look at us and go, don't be ridiculous, you girls are ridiculous. And one of the last conversations that she had with us was because my dad was the driver of the family, and because my dad was the one that we would go to for advice. And if something went wrong, or if we needed the college education talk, and we needed advice about the job or the interview, we went to my father. And my father and my parents knew this. And my dad used to say, I know if there's a problem or if you want something because you ask for me. If the phone rings and somebody says, Dawn, wants to talk to her father, there's a problem because you never ask for me unless there's a problem or if you need advice. And my mom said, you guys would always go to your father. I feel like he had a greater impact on you than I did. I feel like I didn't have an impact on you kids. And we said, no, Mom, you did. Like, you had such strength and you didn't know you had such strength. Dad was able to be the driver because you were there. And the, oh, well, what are you going to do, was your strength. And that allowed you to face his illness and your illness with strength and grace and truly enjoy whatever life gave you. And now when my kids come to me, I'm a mother, and something goes wrong, I hear the impact of my mother say to them, everything will be okay. Oh, well, what are you going to do?